In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful, may peace, mercy and blessings of Allah the Almighty be upon all of you. I am Umair bin Abid and you are watching Linguistics for Everyone, or Umair Linguistics. So today our lecture is the genetic source of language, and this is our last lecture of the origins of language. Last lecture was about the physical adaptation source. The same language you can the same lecture you can watch in Urdu or Hindi as well. You can try this card, or you can watch the video in Urdu or Hindi by clicking the description below, the link in the description below. So let's start. So if we look at the human development briefly, so at birth human brain, you can say, is quarter, or you can say 1/4 of its eventual weight. For example, if a baby has 4 kg weight at birth, so his or her brain would be of 1 kg. Larynx is much higher in throat at birth, allowing babies to breathe and drink at the same time. We also discussed this point in the physical adaptation source, that the larynx of other primates like monkeys, chimpanzees, their larynx is higher in throat, unlike human beings. So due to this property, that larynx is much higher in their throat, they don't have fear that their food will be stuck in their vocal tract. But we have this problem. So but at birth our larynx is also much higher in throat, so due to which we can breathe and drink at the same time. But eventually and gradually our larynx descends, so it will create a longer cavity which we call pharynx. You can refer to that lecture again. And brain develops, and human has an upright posture, starts walking and talking. So you can say this is the brief description of how human develop. Now these automatic developments have led some scholars to look at something more powerful than physical traits of human beings. In last lecture we talked about the physical traits of human beings, that human posture, human larynx, human pharynx, human tongue, human teeth, how all these parts are different from other primates. So we thought that these could be the major sources due to which human can speak a unique language, unlikely other primates. So but now we are looking at rapid development of brain, descending of larynx, started talking in a very short period, and we will discuss all about in language acquisition and psycholinguistics, that how human speech develops of both normal children and deaf children. So these all very rapid processes have led some scholars to think about another source of language. We can also look at deaf children. They also become very fluent in their sign language if they are provided with appropriate environment. And a very shocking or you can say a very surprising result is that those children who are fluent in sign language, their speed is such higher that it meets with those children who can speak as well. So their sign language speed is equal to the speech of normal human beings who can speak. So you can now look at that how fast our brain works. So hence there is a unique quality in human beings which make them able to produce a language with a rapid speed. So now this is innate hypothesis, which many linguists, or you can say many researchers, have suggested, that there is you can say a language gene in human being which is hardwired in human beings. No doubt that this language gene is not, you can say, visible, or has not yet been discovered, but how human develops their speech and how human speaks. So they suggest that there must be a language gene or such like that, so that human speaks uh, very complex structures, or very complex human speech is very complex as compared to other creatures. So let's come to the definition. The idea that humans are generally equipped to acquire language. So focus on this. Genetically equipped to acquire language is called innate hypothesis, that humans have been given the innate ability, the natural ability. By birth they have this ability that they can produce such speech. uh, and there are some genes mutation, and you know what are the gene mutation? When there is alteration or there is change in a gene related to change in human diet. So some gene mutation are related to change in human diet, that whenever there is an alteration or mutation in a particular gene, so human diets vary, human diets changes, especially those results in an increase in calorie intake. So due to some gene mutation our calorie intake increases, and this result in the digestion of starch. And when the starch will be digested, the amount of glucose will increase, and this amount of glucose is very necessary. Our brain needs glucose. So when we have a sufficient amount of glucose, our brain works very fast. Sometimes you may have observed that if you are working for a long time, 1 to 2 hours, with a with full concentration, so you may have observed that you sometimes feel uh, dizzying, and you feel a little bit problematic or a little bit lazy sometimes. So this is the problem of glucose, that the glucose now is, you can say, combusted by your concentration or by your brain when you use your brain. So some researchers have suggested that maybe the amount of glucose is needed, and is really needed, and it is proved that the amount of glucose is needed for brain to work. So they have suggested that these genes mutation are also suggesting that the amount of glucose and the sufficient amount of glucose is necessary to produce such complex structures and to produce such complex language which human have produced and which human are producing. So it means that our brain needs uh, some things, or you can say some elements, through which we are able to speak such complex language. Complex language doesn't mean that difficult structure. Here I mean that complex in this sense, that other creatures, they have similar structure like us, like primates and many other. They have, you can say, 90% or 99% DNA like us, but they are unable to produce language like us. So here I means, when I say complex language, it means that it is complex, or it is, you can say, very unique as compared to other creatures. I don't mean here that you can say complex mean difficult structure. So these changes are believed to have increased the blood flow in brain to create conditions. So this increase of blood flow in when the amount of glucose increase, so the blood flow in the brain increase, so it may create conditions for a bigger and more complex brain. So a normal human being has brain of 3 pounds, and this is, you can say, a quite well a quite well weight of a brain. Dolphins are considered to be very intelligent, and dolphins also have almost the brain of 3 pounds. So this is all about the genetic source of language. So there is also a discussion about, I think, Fox P2 gene, and I will inshallah give you a lecture on this, what is Fox P2 gene. So you may search for a while this gene, that some researchers believe that Fox P2 is the language gene or in human beings. So this is all about genetic source of language. So I hope you would have understood it. If you haven't understood it, or you have any problem, or you can you can point out any mistakes in my lecture, so in the comments box, and you can say, I don't deny that my speaking skills in English are not as well as in Urdu, but I have tried my best to convey my message. So inshallah the next lecture will be what are communicative signals and what are informative signals. So the next lecture is going to start on the new chapter, animals and human language, and this is also an interesting chapter. So don't forget to give your feedback. Remember in your prayers. Jazakallahu khairan and thank you.